So, I pretty much stayed on time. Thanks very much.
I'm going to start my time too. Let's get here. So, my name's Liz Perez with gcgreen. We started gcgreen late 2009. Let's see. And since I transitioned out of the Navy, I spent about 8.5 years in the Navy and about a year in the reserves. And I think what I put here is just kind of a boy story. And as a veteran and being deployed several times, I spent a lot of my time in the 5th and 6th Fleet. And then anybody that is in the Navy can understand that's Mediterranean and Middle East. So when I signed up, they said I'd live out of my sea bag, and they're right. So we're going quite a bit. So what I mean by past meets present is to understand GC Green and where we are today and where we plan on going forward. You'd have to understand my past. And my father spent about 20 years in the Army. His last duty station was at 101st Airborne, and he fought in the first Gulf War. So I kind of had my daddy tracker. It was like 60 minutes and 20/20 and that kind of stuff, because I never knew where he was going, but if there was something going on and it was on the news, he was probably there. So that was kind of my life growing up. And as a kid, I put a paper I wrote when I was 12. You can see the date. It's like barely see the date, 91, and that was in the Gulf War. So as a kid and growing up on the base, and all of our dads were always deployed, and I questioned a lot of things. And what was freedom? And why do we keep going for? My dad was never around, so I questioned a lot of things. I was very inquisitive, and I didn't really understand why we were in the Gulf in the first place. So I asked a lot of questions, and my dad shortly came home early 91, actually not 91, 92, around that time frame, and he came back and he was discharged medically. He came back pretty sick, and he ended up passing away shortly after that. And returning home as a veteran myself, found myself in the second Gulf War. And I had friends that served, a lot of my friends from California, and I lost 2 friends. One of them, she was from here in San Diego, from the same age, just, kids, came out an adult overnight. So, coming back, I had, again, a lot of questions. What was going on, what we faced, and when I actually got out officially in 06, I wanted to find a solution. And part of that solution, and coming from the best of 2 worlds, my mother is Native American, so I grew up thinking sustainable, and conserving what we had, and also my father, being first generation Mexican, but also grew up in a different type of culture. So leveraging social designations and really going back to my roots as a Native American, but also going back to my roots as a veteran as well. And that story, my past, really it's kind of in my DNA. I was just raised that way. And, living sustainable, wearing my dad's combat boots at the age of 3, and then joining the military myself. So it's just, people say sometimes you're born that way. I really was. And, really an objective. So at GC Green, we're not only a general contractor coming home building green, but we're also teaching veterans. A lot of veterans, especially here in San Diego, there's a lot going on. Camp Pendleton, Miramar, a naval base here. There's a huge initiative for the military to go green. When the military says, look, we're going to become more sustainable and energy efficient and conserve water, things are starting to shift. When the military says we're going to do something, that's when a lot of these things start to change within America and the outside community, because the military is going that way. And as the military, we realize that, look, we have a problem. A lot of these wars in our past, not just today's wars, but in the past in World War II, same thing was over resources and giving someone a job and things of that nature. So our social objective, when you see me with Senator Palby, this was just in April. Time goes by quick, so it was just this April. And I helped drive SB 1409, which is the California National Energy Security Act, and it was passed unanimously. So I think as a veteran, and also with, I know there's a lot, actually, there's a lot of this going on. You see, Save the Polar Bears, everybody knows that. And, you know, our gas prices, national security, and that's no surprise. A lot of us veterans, we understand that. And I think as a veteran, and with my story, it's important to also talk about it. And as a business owner, it's important to give back to community as well. And we have decided to become a social venture. And as a social venture firm, we're not a for-profit, we are not a non-profit, but we are for-profit. So we have a social responsibility as a veteran-owned company to come back, share our story, and do something positive about it, but also make a positive impact in our community. And that's helping veterans with jobs and going into the green economy, and then also working towards a more sustainable future. So what we have here is definitely, yes, sharing a story, but you know, how do we do this? So on the top here, I have a lot of designations. Anybody that is in government contracting would understand. And I would not be in this business if I didn't have all those certifications. So and those certifications are being, of course, woman-owned, service disabled vet, and also Native American. Anybody doing government contracting, being a Native American, it does help out quite a bit. So I thought being that conduit of these certifications that God blessed me with is to also connect veterans with those jobs. So as we're out bidding on state work and federal work, we're connecting veterans as part of that workforce. And if we do not have projects currently, building projects, we have 7 agreements with mid-sized to large primes that say, look, we want to hire your trained veterans too. So that helps out quite a bit. We're still growing. Once we get, in 09 we started, 10 we had the wheels and we're getting things going, but still spent some time on idle, and 11 we really took off. And we're still taking off today. And again, the social venture overlay here. So we have a lot of different things. We're definitely going after federal and state contracts, and we have worked actually quite a bit. Our first contract was at SDG&E in 2010. We got contracted with, as a third party, through the Conservation Services Group. We're part of the hotel and resorts program where we actually were out tuning up a lot of the HVAC units. And then the sensors, when you come in, it knows when an occupant is in the room and it turns on automatically. So we're out doing a lot of the test and checks, kind of like you're doing a tune-up on your car, but you're doing a tune-up on your HVAC, your heating and cooling equipment. And on the PTAC units, which is what you see in a hotel room, it's a air conditioning unit attached to the wall. We did installs of the higher efficiency PTAC units as well. And there was something called, we also installed the variable speed drives on, frequency drives onto the PTAC unit. I'm trying to remember the comfort pulse unit. And that was, it worked out okay. Everything else was pretty great there. I think they had some things going on with that, and they'll probably come back in the future. But you live and you learn, and who to team with. Conservation Service Group, they're a third-party contractor with SDG&E, and they have been just awesome with us. They've hired veterans. They took our initiative to hire veterans as well. And we also were involved in a statewide training. We got hired through, or contracted through the state of California under the Energy Upgrade program. And we did, along with Conservation Services Group, Ecology Action, and CCSE, we had statewide training in 30 different counties. We trained, throughout California, we trained about 950 veterans, displaced workers, and contractors throughout the state. So we were all the way from Eureka down to the border, and we were all different places. We didn't do any training on the base, but now that has opened the doors to possibly do some training on the base, opened the doors to start working with San Diego SDSU, and we trained, also given 2 courses at San Diego State with their Green Certificate program, and now moving forward, this is just really recent. Now that we're giving these courses moving forward with gcgreen, it's going to start having San Diego State stamp on certificates. So as we're training veterans or active duty on the base, now that we're working through the university, we're going to get a certificate from San Diego State. So that's really positive news for us. And as we're out bidding on different contracts, we still have that model of putting veterans to work. We are still working with CSG. And our last contract with CSG, we were doing another SDG&E program where we're out doing not the hotels and resorts, the tune-ups there, but we're actually doing them in San Diego School District and just different various buildings throughout the county. And so our contractors were Anchors Away, which is a service-disabled veteran-owned firm. So our model is to hire veterans and then also contract out as a general contractor, contract out to other veteran firms to put us back to work. And I think a lot of us as veterans too that have been deployed, because most of us understand the need that we need to become more efficient. I've worked with many people, I've traveled a lot this year. I'm trying to, when I was mentioning decor, I want to dial that down, but I spent a lot of time in DC this year, Texas, and there's just, there's a really big drive and also a big push. And luckily, I'm from California and live in California, and I don't get a lot of resistance for a lot of the work we're doing. But other places, it's a lot harder, unfortunately. And I think the military coming back, we see that something needs to change. And I kind of don't want to sit back and wait for someone to change it for me. I'm kind of thinking, go with the program, do some positive work out there that makes a difference, and there's actual numbers saying, look, there is some positive that can come out of this and put veterans to work at the same time. So I have it in here and kind of going with the smart grid thing here. So there's a lot of political factors. I always try to keep arm's length away, especially as a business owner, but if I feel that there's going to be a positive impact, like passing 1409, not one senator got pushed back. They said, this makes sense. The military's, becoming more energy efficient. Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we connected with the military? And why isn't the state talking to DOD on how to put these projects together? Why isn't the state, we're missing out here. As the military is becoming more energy efficient, they're hiring other companies outside of California to help them become more energy efficient. So in a sense, this is helping boost our economy here in California, creating jobs and still getting that training. There's, of course, the environmental factors. We all know that. And then there's the tech factors. And that's, again, I'm a big driver about creating those entrepreneurs. And actually, that's something else that we're working on, too, with Kaufman. Anybody familiar with Kaufman? Kaufman is known for their entrepreneur training. And we're contracted with Kaufman. We're in our 8th week now, or going on to our 9th week, with our veteran Kaufman fast track class. And that's creating veteran entrepreneurs. My goal is to create entrepreneurs in the clean tech, clean energy sector, and we're training any veteran that wants to start a company. And as a new entrepreneur myself, I think I can really give some feedback on the stuff that took me 4 years to understand. I hope to try to give them that in 10 weeks as much as I can. So really pushing the clean tech, clean energy side, and then of course the social factors and what we try to do to boost our economy here locally in San Diego. And I'm a resident from the Central Valley, so I understand the water issues out there. And I'm actually talking to the Fresno City Mayor and developing some programs there of what we're doing here in San Diego to boost their economy, because their unemployment's pretty high, and just double that as we're a veteran. So there's a lot of different factors. And of course, working not just with the state and DOD, but it's also important to have that relationship with the utility companies at the same time. We have to have that, and actually SDG&E has been a huge supporter. And SCE they have had breakfast with them. So, but SDG&E has been very veteran friendly, veteran centric, and working with Conservation Services Group, that door has always been open for us. They've been a really good group. And of course, teaming and partnerships is essential, like Conservation Services Group. Anybody that's veteran friendly and understands and is willing to work with us, we're going to team. We're not going to just be some shell to get the certifications to get the job. We want veterans on that job. And that's part of our teaming agreement. That's why I was running a little late. Making sure we get that done. And outsourcing. If there's any subcontracting, our goal again is to have qualified veterans going through making sure that they're going to be on the job too. And then of course the networking. So, you know, like I said, it's in my DNA. This is what I'm passionate about, and I absolutely love what I do. And the Veteran Leadership Academy, the BLA in DC I just graduated from, that's the first class I was part of the first class, and that's the Truman National Security Project. And luckily, again, I'm from California, living in San Diego, where a lot of the Great Green Fleet is happening initiative, the energy efficiency side, and the DoD. So luckily, I live it, I see it every day, and this is what I do. And then, of course, there's still a lot of connecting we got to do as well. And one of the programs, since there are some military veterans in the room, I went through is Entrepreneur Boot Camp for Veterans. So they were a huge help for me to get me started on a veteran entrepreneur path. And they were just amazing. And actually, when I started the program, you know, I was thinking, how do I do this? You know, and I was in the military, and we were voluntold to do things. You know, and there's not a SOP on how to become, you know, an entrepreneur. Right? You gotta just do it and get out there and go on your own. And this is, you know, really what he said. Is Randy Glass. He's one of the directors out at FSU. My husband went to this class as well. So if you're married, your spouse, they don't understand you, and you're like, why do you work so much? Why are you doing these things? Actually, my husband's a business owner, but you could send your family members with you or your business partner to take the class as well. And this is at no cost. It's the best training I had. Syracuse University, Texas A&M. I went to Texas A&M. My husband went to FSU. UCLA is a member. Purdue. So you're talking, you know, some really credible folks, and they connected me with outside industries like PepsiCo. I rang the New York Stock Exchange bell. That was kind of crazy. I had to pinch myself. And I flew me out to Arkansas to speak in front of Walmart corporate folks during on 11/11/11 just last November. So that was really interesting, and got a tour of Walmart headquarters. So felt like I was at Willy Wonka. So it's kind of interesting. One other thing I'll mention too is another group that helped me out, and actually I'm on the last days of my fellowship, is Mission Continues. And it's a internship. I like to call it internship, but it's a way for veterans to get back outside of uniform, because I volunteer, because I love reaching out to community. I love to serve. It's just, again, in my DNA. And what Mission Continues allows you to do is spend 6 months at a nonprofit or a government institution of your choice, and they will pay you for 6 months to go out and volunteer. I know it sounds kind of funny to get paid to volunteer, but they do that to help you get that training under your belt. And then also what I decided to do, I really have such a great relationship with Conservation Services Group, and I found out that they're a nonprofit. I volunteered with them. So that's how I ended up in Sacramento meeting Senator Powell through my Mission Continues and volunteering my time with them. So we have our veteran workforce, and with our certifications, we want to connect with other prime contractors that would like to work with a company like ours. And of course, we're a for-profit. People think we're a nonprofit. But then I let them know that we are a social venture. So yes, we're making money, and we're doing good things. And I love this. Because, you know, in my logistical side, one of the things I wanted to point out, and I forgot to do that, the first slide, I'm standing right behind a 53. So that was my world, logistics. And those 53s are Those are like, it's like thunder in the sky, and they do take a lot of fuel. And, you know, if anybody's familiar, the San Diego Edge, the Clean Tech Edge program, biofuel and algae initiative they have here, and we could talk more about that, and I don't want to go to every one of these steps, but there's a lot of ways, creative ways, that we found to get funding and investors interested in our company. I have not had to borrow money from a bank. Everything was just through the contracts that we were awarded, different crowdfunding, and private investors that found interest in our firm, and that's what's kept us afloat. Oh, I hope it doesn't go there. You have to keep cutting through it to get to the next page. So. And okay, I got it over. And I think this is it here. Okay, so we want to grow as a veteran-owned firm with SDG&E and other utility companies. And as the SDG&E wants to go green, and obviously they're doing a lot to get there, we want to build this military alliance around that. And I think it's just really important. I mean, we're involved in the Hero Alliance at CCSE, and we want to connect a way that veteran-owned firms, there needs to be more veteran-owned firms, honestly. And especially female, say that again. So sometimes I find myself in the only room there. And then what we're trying to develop at Fresno City is the Veteran Energy Task Force. And I'd love to see one here in San Diego. People ask, where are you in Fresno? Well, I'm in my hometown, but I'd love to see a Veteran Energy Task Force. And I think that's what you have going on here, that connection with veteran jobs with San Diego here. So I guess the next steps was your slide there on what we need to do. So are there any questions? I know I went over my time.
So your social venture business, is that B Corp? Is that what you're doing? Or what does that mean specifically? I mean, social venture business units?
So we're an LLC, but we carry that social venture.
So is that a tax bracket B Corp?
Yes, yes. So it's actually pretty new. It just, I want to say maybe in the past year, it's pretty new. And I think that's really important. It's actually helped us to separate us from the other companies, and I think especially what's going on in the economy, and read about the Wall Street and those guys and corporations. I think we kind of want to separate ourselves in a way to say, yes, it's okay to make money, but also as a business owner, I think it's so important to give back to community in some way. It's just, I think it's a social responsibility, whether you're a small or a large company, figure out how to give back. Thank you.
So, does anyone have any questions for any of our panelists?
I have one. The figures on carbon as currency, I know that a lot of discussion goes into return on investment and how long it's going to take to pay back some of these new technologies and systems that could go into it. Is there any other way that you can incorporate carbon as currency and publish that in any way so you can see, yes, it looks like 50 years before it will pay off our additional investment, but what is the carbon savings in the meantime? Is that how it's going?
So when it comes, for us, at SDG&E, when it comes to payback, a lot of the things that we do are not because they make basic financial sense from the investment perspective. They're done because we have policy requirements that we have to meet. So when we think about benefits, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. One way is things that save us money, right? That we're not going to have to do in the future. So having smart meters, for example, gives us a technology solution that lets us not have meter readers anymore. So we took all more meter readers, we retrained them into better high-paying jobs. We got very well. When it comes to things like the value of carbon emissions, I saw a slide up there where you had the cover of Walmart. Walmart and SDG&E have both worked with what we call the Environmental Defense Fund, which is a national lobbying organization that works with corporations to find sort of practical ways to improve their environmental footprint. And so working with EDF, with that plan that I showed there on the last slide, we came up with an estimate of all costs that it would take to do all those things, and of course, in about 15 years. But then we also came up with models on what the benefits would be. And we did include in a separate category the benefits of reducing carbon emissions, for example, by moving gasoline fuel transportation to electric vehicles, by moving gas-fired generation to solar photovoltaics or wind generation. We did our best and created a model with EDF, which helped us validate that really, and came up with a value around those. And those really do complete the business case. I think without trying to tease out some of those benefits, on a purely economic basis, not all these things make sense. There is no carbon market really today. At least that anybody is actively taking it. It's starting to emerge. So you don't have that market-based plans and data to work from. So it's all modeling.
Second question, maybe these will, with those government regulations that you say you're responding to, what subsidies go along with those, and given that current economic condition, does change, how does your long-term picture change in any way? Or is your long-term picture already funded at this point?
So, that's a huge question.
Right.
And it gets into sort of the regulatory finance model of how utilities work in California. Just the basics, we don't make money off of selling electricity. California decoupled sales of electricity from the revenues of utilities back in the 80s. And they did that so that utilities would have financial incentives to encourage conservation by customers. In a lot of states, if you use more energy as you hit certain thresholds, you start paying less on a per unit cost. Your marginal cost per unit goes down. Well, here in California, it actually goes up. And they've done that for various political and other sort of what we'll call social engineering reasons to try and get customers to behave in a certain way. The way we make money is by investing in the assets that we see around us, right? Not just buildings like this necessarily, but the poles, the wires, the substations, the plants, and things like that. So it's really all about that capital investment that we make. We are not subsidized per se in making those investments. However, we do enjoy a guaranteed rate of return on those investments. Most regular competitive companies don't get that kind of treatment.